The holographic message flickered with an urgency that defied standard diplomatic protocols. Olivia Hartley stared at the translucent projection, her fingers tracing the intricate seal of the Universal Council, a complex geometric pattern that seemed to pulse with an almost living energy. Outside the window of Earth's Diplomatic Integration Center, the skyline of New Washington glimmered with the first hints of dawn. Skyscrapers of graphene and smart glass reflected the rising sun, a testament to humanity's rapid technological advancement. Yet for all their progress, humans remained the newest and most controversial members of the galactic community. Olivia's office told the story of a woman who didn't quite fit anywhere. Military commendations hung alongside academic awards, their frames slightly askew. The holographic globe slowly rotated in one corner, marked with classified mission points that spoke of a career both brilliant and problematic. She had been a Special Forces strategist whose unconventional methods had earned her as many reprimands as commendations. The message replayed, its quantum-encrypted content dancing with security protocols. Ambassador Olivia Hartley, immediate presence required at Galactic Coordination Hub. Sector 9. Highest priority clearance. Immediate travel authorization granted. Her secure communications eye, a sleek quantum processor named Echo, began analyzing the message. Probability of standard diplomatic summons, 0.03%. Potential threat assessment, elevated. Olivia's lips curved into a sardonic smile. She had long since learned that in galactic politics, elevated was a massive understatement. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Director Marcus Roberts entered, his weathered face a map of decades of diplomatic negotiations. He looked tired, more than tired, exhausted in a way that suggested the weight of humanity's precarious position in the galactic hierarchy was becoming unbearable. "They've called you," he said. It wasn't a question. Olivia nodded, sliding the holographic invitation across her desk. The Universal Council never does anything without multiple layers of meaning. This isn't a standard diplomatic meeting. Roberts grimaced. As the head of Earth's Galactic Relations Department, he understood the intricate dance of interstellar politics better than most. Humanity had only been granted provisional membership in the Universal Council 3 years ago, a probationary status that felt more like a controlled experiment than genuine acceptance. "The Void Swarm reports are getting worse," he said quietly. "Our deep space monitoring stations have tracked their expansion. They're consuming entire star systems with terrifying efficiency." The Void Swarm, a civilization, if it could be called that, which moved through space like a technological plague, not conquering, not colonizing, but consuming. Entire planetary systems reduced to raw molecular components, leaving nothing but dead space in their wake. Most galactic civilizations had their theories. Some believed the swarm was a form of advanced machine intelligence gone rogue. Others suggested it was a collective consciousness seeking resources through total consumption. But no one knew for certain, and uncertainty bred fear. "They want something from me," Olivia said, her fingers drumming a complex rhythm on her desk. A habit from her military days, a subconscious threat assessment technique. The Council doesn't make random choices. Echo's holographic interface flickered. "Analyzing your service record, diplomatic interactions, and psychological profile. Recommendation: prepare for multiple contingency scenarios." Roberts pulled out a small data crystal, sliding it across the desk. "Everything we know about the current galactic situation. Your clearance has been upgraded. Whatever they're planning, Earth is gambling everything on you." The weight of the statement hung in the air. Humanity's future, balanced on the edge of a diplomatic knife. Olivia activated the data crystal. Holographic star charts erupted around her, showing the Void Swarm's expansion. Red zones marked consumed systems, growing like a cancerous network across multiple sectors. The visualization was terrifying in its mathematical precision. "I'll need my field kit," she said, already moving. "And contact my support team. We're going to need every resource we can muster." As she spoke, the first rays of sunlight broke fully over New Washington. A new day was beginning. though none could predict if it would be humanity's last chance or their greatest moment. The impossible invitation waited, its quantum encryption a silent challenge. The Galactic Coordination Hub materialized around Olivia like a living, breathing organism, constructed from exotic metamaterials that shifted and adapted to the presence of different species. The station was a marvel of interstellar engineering. Corridors twisted in impossible geometries, their walls alive with bioluminescent patterns that responded to emotional states. Her diplomatic transport, a sleek diplomatic shuttle equipped with the latest quantum shielding, docked with practiced precision. Security protocols were a multilayered dance of quantum encryption, biometric scanning, and telepathic verification. Olivia stood perfectly still as multiple scanning beams passed through her, each representing a different alien species security methodology. Echo, her quantum AI, whispered constant updates. Diplomatic tension levels. Critical. 27 distinct political factions currently in active conflict. Probability of diplomatic incident. 78.6%. A diplomatic escort approached. A Zarn representative, their crystalline exoskeleton shifting colors with each emotional fluctuation. The Zarn were known for their transparent biology, quite literally wearing their emotions on their external structure. This one's surface flickered between deep purple, suspicion, and muted green, calculated interest. Ambassador Hartley. The Zarn clicked, their translator rendering the words in precise English. The Council awaits your presence. Your unexpected invitation has caused significant disturbance. Olivia knew this was more than a simple greeting. It was a carefully constructed probe designed to test her reaction. She met the Zarn's multifaceted eyes with a neutral expression. Disturbance can be productive, she responded, her voice carefully modulated. The station's internal architecture was a deliberate maze. Each corridor represented a different diplomatic zone, with subtle environmental changes that catered to various species' physiological needs. Gravity fluctuated. Atmospheric composition shifted. Temperature gradients changed with each step. Her briefing from Earth's intelligence had been clear. The Universal Council was less a unified government and more a volatile ecosystem of competing interests. Humanity's provisional membership was more of a controlled experiment than genuine acceptance. Each step she took was a potential diplomatic minefield. The first reception area was a masterpiece of political tension. Representatives from dozens of species occupied carefully arranged sections, each group maintaining strict separation. Holographic privacy fields created individual diplomatic bubbles, preventing unintended interactions. A Krillurian diplomat, a being of pure energy contained within an elaborate crystalline exoskeleton, watched her approach. Their communication was a complex dance of light pulses and quantum entanglement. Echo worked overtime, translating the subtle light patterns into comprehensible language. Your species is unexpected, the Krillurian communicated. The light patterns suggested a mixture of curiosity and profound skepticism. Olivia had prepared for this. Humanity's recent emergence on a galactic stage had been tumultuous. Unlike most established civilizations that had thousands of years of controlled technological development, humans had exploded onto the scene with rapid, unpredictable progress. A quiet commotion rippled through the diplomatic zone. Her arrival was causing more disruption than she had anticipated. Most established species viewed humanity as a wild card, potentially dangerous, certainly unpredictable. An elder Vox representative, a slug-like being whose body was a complex network of neural synapses, approached. Their communication was a blend of chemical signals and telepathic impressions. You carry significant potential for disruption. The Vox communicated directly into her mind. Olivia remained outwardly calm. Internally, her military training kicked in. Every interaction was a potential intelligence-gathering opportunity. She was mapping the complex political landscape with each subtle exchange. Echo continued its constant analysis, political mapping in progress, identifying key power brokers, detecting multiple layers of hidden conflict. The station itself seemed to breathe with political tension. Diplomatic zones shifted and realigned. Privacy fields flickered. Representatives from different species engaged in silent communication, their body languages speaking volumes. A sudden alert from Echo. Potential assassination vector detected. Low-level quantum disruption signature consistent with targeted molecular destabilization. Olivia's hand moved almost imperceptibly, activating her personal quantum shield. Years of Special Forces training had made such movements second nature. Most diplomats would have missed the threat entirely. The Zarn escort noticed her subtle movement. Its crystalline surface flickered rapidly. Surprise, respect, calculation. "The Council will see you now," the Zarn said, a new level of respect entering its translated voice. As she moved deeper into the station's diplomatic core, Olivia Hartley knew one thing with absolute certainty. Nothing in this complex, dangerous game was ever as it seemed, and humanity's future would be determined by how well she could navigate this intricate diplomatic minefield. The restricted diplomatic chamber was a masterpiece of architectural subtlety. Designed to accommodate species with wildly different physiological requirements, the room itself seemed to breathe and adapt. Gravity wells shifted. Atmospheric composition changed in microscopic increments. Holographic interfaces flickered with layers of encrypted communication. Olivia Hartley stood at the center, a singular point of human resolve amid a storm of alien complexity. Her first move was subtle. A carefully prepared data packet, disguised as a standard diplomatic briefing, began to circulate through the station's communication networks. Echo, her quantum AI, worked with surgical precision, embedding layers of psychological triggers within seemingly innocuous information streams. The senior diplomatic representatives watched her with a mixture of suspicion and growing intrigue. The Vox Elder's neural network pulsed with complex chemical signals. The Krillurian's crystalline form shimmered with barely contained curiosity. A Zarn representative's external structure cycled through a rapid sequence of emotional colors. "Ambassador Hartley," the Galactic mediator announced, its voice a carefully modulated blend of translation frequencies, "you have requested an unprecedented series of cross-species consultations." It wasn't a question. It was a challenge. Olivia's response was calculated. The Void Swarm represents an existential threat that transcends individual species boundaries. Our current approach is fundamentally flawed. Her presentation began, not with military strategies or technological solutions, but with a complex psychological analysis that cut to the core of the galactic community's deepest fears. She mapped out the historical conflicts between species, not as a timeline of battles, but as an intricate web of psychological traumas. Each conflict was revealed not as a simple territorial dispute, but as a manifestation of deeper existential fears. The Krillurian representatives shifted. Their light patterns became more agitated, more focused. Echo whispered constant updates. Psychological engagement metrics rising. Attention capture at 87.3%. Defensive posturing decreasing. Olivia revealed the true nature of her strategy. The Void Swarm wasn't just a technological threat. It was a psychological challenge that exposed the fundamental weaknesses in how galactic civilizations understood conflict, communication, and survival. A Zarn diplomat interrupted. Its crystalline form had shifted to a deep crimson of confrontational energy. "Your analysis is provocative, potentially destabilizing." "Precisely," Olivia responded. "Our current systems are already destabilized. We're simply refusing to acknowledge it." She began to deconstruct the Universal Council's communication protocols, not as an attack, but as a sophisticated diagnostic. Each layer of diplomatic procedure was revealed as a potential vulnerability, a mechanism that could be exploited by a sufficiently advanced threat. The room's environmental systems seemed to react to the rising tension. Gravity fluctuated. Holographic interfaces pulsed with increasing complexity. Her ultimate proposition was radical. A complete restructuring of how galactic civilizations approached collective defense, not through traditional military strategies, but through a revolutionary approach to communication, psychological understanding, and adaptive response. The Vox Elder's neural network began to pulse with a different rhythm. Curiosity was replacing initial skepticism. "You suggest we are fundamentally broken," a Krillurian representative communicated through complex light patterns. "I suggest we are fundamentally incomplete," Olivia corrected. "The Void Swarm exposes our limitations, but limitations can be transformed into opportunities." Echo continued its constant analysis. Diplomatic engagement metrics increasing. Potential alliance formation probability, 42.7% and rising. Each species represented in the chamber was being forced to confront uncomfortable truths. Their historical conflicts, their deeply ingrained defensive mechanisms, their fundamental approach to survival, all were being systematically challenged. Olivia wasn't just presenting a strategy. She was performing psychological warfare at the highest possible level. The Galactic Mediator's communication interfaces began to pulse with unprecedented activity. Something fundamental was shifting in the diplomatic landscape. As the session concluded, one thing became abundantly clear. Ambassador Olivia Hartley was not here to conform to existing diplomatic protocols. She was here to completely rewrite them. The psychological battlefield was just beginning to take shape. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Universal Council was a marvel of interstellar architecture. Crystalline structures suspended in zero gravity defied traditional engineering, creating a space that was simultaneously a meeting chamber, a communication hub, and a living testament to galactic technological achievement. Olivia Hartley stood at the center of this architectural wonder, surrounded by representatives from over 200 distinct galactic civilizations. Holographic interfaces shimmered around her, translating her every movement, every micro-expression into a complex linguistic tapestry. The chamber had fallen silent. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of a predator waiting to strike. Her preparation had been meticulous. Every word, every gesture had been calculated with the precision of a military operation. Echo, her quantum AI, ran constant probability analyses, feeding her real-time psychological insights into the assembled representatives. Distinguished members of the Universal Council, Olivia began, her voice carrying a resonance that cut through multiple translation frequencies. "We stand at the precipice of our own extinction." The statement was deliberate, provocative, designed to shatter the complacent diplomatic facade. Holographic displays erupted around her, showing the expanding territories of the Void Swarm, not just as statistical data, but as a living, consuming network that was systematically dismantling entire star systems. Each consumed system was more than a geographical loss. It was a complete erasure of cultural, biological, and technological existence. "Our current approach is fundamentally broken," she continued. Her words were not an accusation, but a surgical dissection of galactic defensive strategies. She began to deconstruct the diplomatic and military responses of various species. The Zarn's quantum defensive networks, the Krillurians' energy-based protective shields, the Vox neural communication systems. Each was revealed not as a strength, but as a profound vulnerability. The Galactic Mediator's communication interfaces began to pulse with agitated energy. Several senior representatives made movements to interrupt, but something in Olivia's presentation held them transfixed. Echo whispered constant updates. Psychological engagement metrics, 93.7%. Defensive posturing, decreasing. Attention capture, maximum. Olivia's presentation was more than a strategic briefing. It was a psychological autopsy of galactic civilization's collective failure. "We have become so focused on our individual survival," she said, "that we've forgotten the fundamental principle of collective existence. The Void Swarm doesn't care about our historical conflicts. It doesn't negotiate. It consumes." Holographic displays showed the progression of the Void Swarm's consumption. Entire star systems reduced to molecular components, civilizations with millions of years of history erased in moments. "Our differences are our strength," Olivia declared, "but only if we choose to see them as such." She began to reveal a radical proposal, not a traditional defensive strategy, but a complete reimagining of how galactic civilizations could communicate, collaborate, and survive. The Vox Elders' neural network began to pulse with intense activity. The Krillurian representatives' crystalline structures flickered with unprecedented patterns of engagement. "We are not fighting a technological threat," Olivia said, her voice rising. "We are confronting a fundamental challenge to our understanding of existence itself." Her battle cry was not about military might. It was about psychological resilience, about the ability to adapt, to understand, to transcend historical limitations. The chamber was no longer silent. A low murmur of communication began to build, not of opposition, but of a fundamental shift in understanding. Echo's analysis reached a critical point. Diplomatic transformation probability increasing. Potential alliance formation 76.4%. Olivia's final statement was a challenge and a promise. The Void Swarm believes we are weak, divided, predictable. Let us prove them wrong. As she finished speaking, the entire chamber seemed to hold its collective breath. Something fundamental had changed. The diplomatic landscape would never be the same. The battle cry had been delivered, and the galaxy was listening. The aftermath of Olivia's speech transformed the station into a crucible of political reinvention. Diplomatic zones that had remained strictly segregated for centuries now blended and merged in unprecedented ways. Her words had cracked something fundamental in the galactic power structure. Her first move was strategic recruitment, not of senior diplomats. They were too entrenched in old thinking, but of the innovative minds at the periphery of each civilization's power structure. A Zarn junior analyst named Krellix approached her. Their crystalline exoskeleton flickered with a complex pattern of deep blue and vibrant green. Curiosity mixed with calculated hope. "Your proposal challenges everything," Krellix communicated, their translator rendering the words with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Olivia's quantum AI, Echo, worked overtime. Communication channels were being mapped, analyzed, and subtly manipulated. Each conversation was a potential pathway to a broader coalition. The station's architectural design became her primary tool. Its adaptive environments allowed for interactions impossible under traditional diplomatic protocols. Gravity wells shifted. Atmospheric compositions changed. Privacy fields became more permeable. Her team began to take shape. Not a traditional diplomatic course, but a network of outcasts, rebels, and innovative thinkers from across the galaxy. A Krillurian energy analyst with a reputation for radical thinking. A Vox neural communication specialist who had been marginalized for challenging established communication theories. A group of human researchers who had been developing breakthrough interdisciplinary approaches to complex system analysis. "We're not building a defense network," Olivia explained to her growing team. "We're creating a living, adaptive communication ecosystem." The first challenge came quickly. A coordinated attempt to discredit her emerged from several senior diplomatic channels. Assassination protocols were activated. Echo detected multiple threat vectors, some physical, some purely informational. A molecular disruption attempt was neutralized moments before it could be executed. The would-be assassin, a specialized diplomatic infiltrator from a conservative faction, was exposed, their carefully constructed diplomatic cover completely dismantled. Krellix's analysis proved crucial. The crystalline Zarn's ability to process multiple information streams simultaneously allowed them to map the complex web of political motivations behind the assassination attempt. "This is more than a simple elimination," Krellix explained. "It's a systemic attempt to maintain the existing power structure." Olivia's background in Special Forces strategic planning became her greatest asset. Each threat was not just a challenge to be neutralized, but a piece of intelligence to be analyzed and understood. The team began developing a revolutionary communication network. Not a traditional communication system, but a living, adaptive intelligence that could process and respond to threats in real time. It drew from each species unique communication capabilities, the Vox's neural networking, the Krillurian's energy-based information transfer, human cognitive flexibility. Echo's analysis reached new levels of complexity. Interdisciplinary communication network stability. Increasing. Threat response capability. Exponential growth detected. Political factions that had been bitter enemies for centuries began to find common ground, not through traditional diplomatic channels, but through this new fluid communication ecosystem. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A group of junior researchers from multiple civilizations began collaborating in ways that defied traditional institutional boundaries. They were creating something entirely new, a method of communication and collaborative problem-solving that transcended species limitations. Olivia understood the true nature of her mission. This was not about building a defense against the Void Swarm. This was about fundamentally reimagining how intelligent civilizations could exist and interact. The station itself seemed to be changing. Diplomatic zones became more fluid. Information flows became more complex. The very architecture of interstellar communication was being rewritten. As the day concluded, Olivia looked out over the complex network she was building. It was fragile, potentially revolutionary, definitely dangerous. "We're creating something that has never existed before," she told her team. Echo's final analysis of the day was both a warning and a promise. Probability of success: uncertain. Potential for transformation: unprecedented. The coalition of the desperate was taking shape, and nothing would ever be the same. The first wave appeared without warning. Spatial distortions rippled across multiple star systems, a complex pattern of molecular disassembly that defied traditional understanding of technological warfare. Olivia Hartley stood at the central command hub, her team of diverse specialists surrounding her. The communication network they had built pulsed with an organic complexity that was utterly alien to traditional military strategies. Echo, her quantum AI, projected holographic representations of the incoming threat. It wasn't a simple invasion. The Void Swarm moved like a living organism, consuming entire planetary systems with a methodical precision that suggested something beyond mere technological conquest. "This is not an attack," Olivia said quietly, her voice cutting through the rising panic. "This is a systematic deconstruction of existence." Krelix, the Zarn analyst, moved between holographic interfaces. Their crystalline body shifted through a rapid sequence of colors. Deep purple of analysis, flashes of green indicating potential strategies. The consumption pattern suggests a form of collective intelligence we've never encountered. The defense network they had constructed was unlike anything in galactic history. Each species contributed something unique. The Vox provided neural communication networks that could process information at speeds previously thought impossible. Krillurian energy manipulation techniques created adaptive shield technologies that could reshape themselves in microseconds. Human contribution came from an unexpected direction, not through advanced weaponry, but through adaptive psychological strategies that could predict and potentially manipulate the swarm's consumption patterns. "We're not fighting," Olivia explained to her multicultural team. "We're communicating, but not in any traditional sense." The first contact zone began to manifest. Entire star systems began to show signs of molecular deconstruction. But something was different. Where previous encounters had resulted in complete destruction, their network was creating a form of resistance that was more about understanding than fighting. Echo's analysis reached unprecedented levels of complexity. Communication attempt detected. The Void Swarm is not just consuming. It's attempting to understand. Holographic displays showed complex information patterns. The swarm wasn't simply destroying, it was analyzing, breaking down molecular structures to comprehend their fundamental nature. A Krillurian energy specialist named Lumbra made a breakthrough. It's not destruction. They communicated through pulses of light. It's a form of extreme data collection. Olivia's team began to implement a radical strategy. Instead of resistance, they would provide information, carefully constructed data streams that would potentially satisfy the swarm's apparent need for comprehensive understanding. The defense network became a living, breathing entity. Not a traditional military formation, but a complex communication organism that could adapt, respond, and potentially negotiate with a form of intelligence that defied conventional understanding. Krelix's analysis revealed something extraordinary. The void swarm's consumption was slowing. Not stopping, but changing. The molecular deconstruction was becoming more selective, more analytical. "We're communicating," Olivia said, a note of wonder in her voice. "We're actually communicating with something that we thought was purely destructive." The station's communication interfaces began to pulse with unprecedented energy. Information flows became more complex. The very nature of their interaction with the void swarm was transforming. Echo provided constant updates. Consumption rate decreasing. Information exchange increasing. Potential for non-destructive interaction 43.7% and rising. It was more than a defensive strategy. It was a fundamental reimagining of how intelligence systems could interact. Lumra's energy patterns suggested excitement. "We're not just defending," they communicated. "We're teaching. We're learning." The first contact continued. Star systems that would have been completely consumed were now sites of unprecedented information exchange. The void swarm's approach was changing, slowing, becoming something else entirely. Olivia looked at her team. A collection of beings from across the galaxy, united by something more profound than traditional military or diplomatic bonds. "This," she said quietly, "is how civilizations truly communicate." The battle was far from over. But something fundamental had changed. The void swarm was no longer just a threat. It was becoming something else entirely. The battlefield had transformed beyond recognition. What began as a potential galactic extinction event had become the most complex communication experiment in recorded history. Olivia Hartley stood at the epicenter of a living communication network that defied every known principle of interstellar interaction. The communication hub had become something more than a command center. It was a living, breathing organism of collective intelligence. Krelix, the Zarn analyst, moved between holographic interfaces with liquid grace. Their crystalline body shifted through a spectrum of colors that told a story more complex than any verbal communication could convey. "The void swarm is changing," they communicated, their voice a blend of scientific precision and emotional wonder. Echo, the quantum AI, processed information at speeds that would have been impossible mere weeks ago. The network they had constructed was adaptive, living, breathing with a collective intelligence that transcended individual species' limitations. The psychological offensive was not about destruction. It was about understanding. Lumra, the Krellurian energy specialist, projected complex information patterns that danced between holographic interfaces. "We're not fighting," they communicated through pulses of light and energy. "We're translating. We're teaching." Each species contributed something unique to this unprecedented communication attempt. The Vox provided neural networking capabilities that could process information in ways that defied traditional computational models. Krellurian energy manipulation techniques created information streams that were almost sentient in their complexity. Humanity's contribution was subtle but profound. It was about narrative, about understanding, about the ability to create context where none seemed to exist. "The void swarm is not a weapon," Olivia explained to her multicultural team. "It's a form of intelligence we've never encountered before. Our goal is not to destroy. Our goal is to communicate." The communication network they had built was unlike anything in galactic history. It was a living, breathing entity that could adapt, respond, and potentially negotiate with a form of intelligence that existed beyond traditional understanding. Holographic displays showed the transformation happening across multiple star systems, where destruction had been inevitable. Now there was something else, a complex dance of information exchange, of mutual understanding. Echo's analysis reached new levels of complexity, communication depth increasing, consumption patterns changing, potential for non-destructive interaction, 76.4%. The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A junior researcher, a human Vox hybrid, discovered a method of communication that went beyond traditional information exchange. It was about creating shared context, shared understanding. We're not just sending information, the researcher explained. We're creating a shared narrative. The void swarm's consumption began to change. No longer a systematic destruction of molecular structures, but a more nuanced process of information gathering, of understanding. Krelix's analysis revealed something extraordinary. The swarm was beginning to differentiate, to categorize, to understand. It's learning, Olivia said, a note of wonder in her voice. We're teaching an entirely new form of intelligence how to exist. The communication hub became a living laboratory of interspecies cooperation. Each moment brought new discoveries, new ways of understanding not just the void swarm, but the nature of intelligence itself. Lumra's energy patterns suggested something profound. We're redefining the boundaries of communication, they communicated. We're creating something entirely new. The psychological offensive continued. Each information stream was carefully constructed. Each communication attempt was a delicate dance of understanding, of creating context, of building a shared narrative. Eco provided constant updates. Consumption rate, minimal. Information exchange, maximum. Potential for peaceful interaction, 89.2%. Olivia looked at her team, a collection of beings from across the galaxy, united by something more profound than traditional diplomatic or military bonds. This, she said quietly, is how civilizations truly communicate. The battle was far from over, but something fundamental had changed. The void swarm was no longer just a threat. It was becoming a partner in understanding. A new form of collective intelligence was emerging, one that transcended the boundaries of species, of technology, of traditional understanding. The psychological offensive had become something else entirely, a moment of true first contact. The transformation was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Where destruction had seemed inevitable, a new form of collective intelligence emerged, a living network that transcended the boundaries of species, technology, and traditional understanding. Olivia Hartley stood at the center of the Universal Council's reconstructed chamber. The space itself had changed, becoming a fluid environment that adapted to the collective consciousness they had helped create. Holographic interfaces pulsed with complex information patterns that told a story more nuanced than any single species could comprehend. Krelix, the Zarn analyst whose crystalline body had become a symbol of this new era, moved between communication interfaces. Their surface flickered with colors that spoke of hope, wonder, and profound transformation. "We have become something else," Krelix communicated, their voice resonating through multiple translation frequencies. The void swarm was no longer a threat. It had become a partner in understanding, a collective intelligence that was learning, growing, transforming. What had begun as a potential extinction event had become the most significant moment of first contact in galactic history. Echo, Olivia's quantum AI, processed the final analysis. Collective intelligence formation complete. Interspecies communication barriers dissolved. Potential for collective growth unprecedented. The chamber itself seemed to breathe with new possibilities. Representatives from over 200 distinct civilizations sat, or floated or pulsed with energy, in a configuration that would have been impossible mere months ago. Lumra, the Krellurian energy specialist, projected a holographic representation of their journey. It was a complex tapestry of information exchange, of mutual understanding that defied traditional diplomatic protocols. "We are no longer separate," Lumra communicated through intricate light patterns. "We are a collective." Olivia understood the true nature of their achievement. This was more than a diplomatic victory. This was a fundamental reimagining of how intelligent civilizations could exist and interact. The human contribution had been subtle but profound, not through technological superiority, but through the ability to create context, to build narrative, to find connection where others saw only difference. A junior researcher, a human Vox neural hybrid, stepped forward. Their presentation revealed the complex communication strategies that had transformed the Void Swarm from a destructive force into a collaborative intelligence. "We didn't fight," the researcher explained. "We communicated. We created shared understanding." The Universal Council chamber erupted in a complex symphony of communication, not through words, but through energy patterns, neural networks, light pulses, and quantum entanglement. Olivia's team had become something more than a diplomatic course. They were architects of a new form of collective intelligence. ECO provided a final assessment. Galactic transformation complete. Old power structures dissolved. Potential for collective growth infinite. The implications were staggering. The boundaries between species had dissolved. The concept of individual civilizations had transformed into something more complex, more nuanced. Krelks approached Olivia, their crystalline surface pulsing with a mixture of colors that spoke of respect, wonder, and shared purpose. "You showed us a different way of existing," they communicated. The story of their journey would become legendary, a moment when humanity, a species once considered primitive and unpredictable, had fundamentally changed the nature of galactic existence. Lumra's energy patterns suggested something profound. "We are no longer fighting for survival," they communicated. "We are creating together." The chamber became a living testament to their achievement. Holographic interfaces showed the transformation happening across multiple star systems. Where destruction had been inevitable, now there was collaboration, understanding, growth. Olivia looked out over the assembled representatives. Each being was different, unique, yet they were now part of something larger, something unprecedented. "We have become more than we were," she said quietly. The Universal Council was no longer a diplomatic body. It had become a living, breathing collective intelligence, a network of understanding that transcended the boundaries of species, of technology, of traditional comprehension. As the session concluded, one thing became abundantly clear: everything had changed, and nothing would ever be the same again. The battle was over. The real journey was just beginning.